Welcome to Progressive Education Society's Modern College of Pharmacy, Nigdi, Pune, in the e-lecture series of Natural Drug Technology. Myself, Dr. Bhushan Pimpre, we will discuss few points related to the chapter overview of means and methods used in structural elucidation of natural products, as per the curriculum of Savitribai Phule, Pune University. This video will specifically focus upon elemental composition determination by the way of combustion analysis. Elemental composition can be determined by various methods, and this method to determine elemental composition, that is exactly the empirical formula of any organic molecule, is done by combusting the sample. Suppose you have a sample, you can determine its empirical formula by combustion analysis. The resulting products of combustion are quantitatively analyzed to determine how much amount of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen or nitrogen are present in the sample. The basic applications of this elemental composition is in determination of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur, um, of certain samples, and herein the carbon or hydrogen are first converted to their oxidized form. Like for example, carbon is converted to CO2, hydrogen to H2O, nitrogen to NO or NO2, whereas sulfur to SO2. Now these oxidized forms are utilized for determination of elemental analysis. The oxidation is carried out generally at higher temperature with high oxygen condition. This helps in oxidation of the elements. Usually this method is used to determine the nitrogen in certain food products or the cattle feed or some certain poultry feed. It also helps us to determine the protein percent content. That means the proteins are basically formed of amino acids, and each amino acid has minimum one nitrogen. So depending upon the number of nitrogen, you can determine the number of amino acids, and by back calculation you can determine the percent protein content. Then this method is oftenly used for determination of sulfur in various petroleum products. The petroleum products can also be used in certain pharmaceutical as well as oil or paint industries. Total organic carbon. Organic carbon in sense the carbon trapped within the organic molecule, and if such organic molecule is dissolved in water, the total organic carbon can be determined. The process for elemental composition is, first the sample is taken and it is heated at a higher temperature by using certain oxidizing agent. Generally, copper oxide is used as an oxidizing agent in order to convert the elements into their oxidized forms. The oxidized forms are then are usually present in the gaseous form, and these gases are trapped with certain trapping agent. Like for example, if you need to trap water, we need certain hygroscopic elements or agents like magnesium perchlorate or calcium chloride. They can be used to trap the water. Now once you have trapped water, you can determine the presence of hydrogen, number of hydrogen. Similarly, the remaining gas that is devoid of water, water has already been trapped by magnesium perchlorate, but the remaining elements can also be trapped by using various strong bases. Now here, generally CO2 gets trapped with on the in the presence of potassium hydroxide. Now you can imagine by these two methods, by trapping water you can determine hydrogen, by trapping the gas on KOH, you can determine the CO2. Very similarly, other methods are applicable. Other elements are used to or materials are used to trap various other gases. Now, when you have trapped the water on hygroscopic agent, the number of water molecules are equivalent to the number of hydrogen. That means not exactly equivalent, half. The number of water molecules will be half the number of hydrogen atoms present in the sample. Suppose your sample has 100 hydrogen atoms. Each hydrogen atom will form will get converted to water molecule, but two hydrogen molecule atoms will form one water molecule. Therefore, suppose your sample has 100 hydrogens, so they will form only 50 water molecule. So by this way you can back calculate. If you have 50 water molecules, you can see that your sample has 100 hydrogen. Likewise, if your sample has at the end, if you have got, so suppose 80 carbon dioxide molecules. Now we know CO2 has only one carbon. So if 80 CO2 are present, you can confirmly say that there are 80 carbon in my sample. So this is the way how the process. There is another method called as carbon, hydrogen and nitrogen analyzer, commonly known as CHN analyzer, wherein the various instruments are used to determine the elemental concentration, the number of elements and the quantity of elements present in the sample, generally carbon, hydrogen and nitrogen. This instrument is also based upon combustion analysis. It first burns out the sample to oxidized form, and then these oxidized compounds are then determined either by use of IR or by thermal conductivity method. So here sample is taken, it is combusted in presence of an oxidizing agent into an oxidized product. So suppose C is present, then oxidizing agent will convert the C into CO2. Now such kind of CO2s are then determined either by thermal conductivity or IR. Another most popularly used method is Geldahl method, or it is commonly known as Geldahl method. Now this method is slightly lengthier method, but it is more accurate generally for determination of nitrogens. Quantitative determination of nitrogen in organic as well as inorganic compounds is possible by this method. In order to determine other forms of inorganic nitrogen like nitrates, it requires a little modification. This Geldahl method, it requires a bit modification to determine the inorganic nitrogens of other forms like nitrates and all. The method, first we will have a look at the method, how it works. A substance is heated in presence of sulfuric acid. Let us assume our sample is an egg albumin. Now this egg albumin, we need to determine how much amount of nitrogen is present in it. So we will be heating our egg albumin sample, weighed quantity of egg albumin sample with sulfuric acid. Now this sulfuric acid decomposes the organic substances and by the way of oxidation and will release nitrogen in the form of ammonium sulfate. Why? Because the albumin will have amino acids. It is a protein, so it will have amino acids. Each amino group will react with the sulfuric acid sulfate to form ammonium sulfate. So your if suppose your albumin has 100 amino group, so it will react with 100 sulfate. 100 amino will react with 100 sulfate molecules to form ammonium, 100 sulfate ammonium sulfate molecules. Organic nitrogen of albumin plus H2SO4 is heated and oxidized to get ammonium sulfate. Now, this heating process is facilitated by increasing the boiling point, and this can be done by use of potassium sulfate. Potassium sulfate increases the medium's boiling point to around 337 to 373 degrees Celsius, during which the decomposition can occur easily. Initially, when you are before the heating of the sample appears to be bluish or darker in color, and as the combustion completes, after complete decomposition of the sample is found to be colorless or slight yellow in color. So you can imagine a blue colored sample initially, and after complete combustion, it will get converted to either clear or colorless or sometimes pale yellow color. So this will indicate the completion of combustion. You can see here the first flask which is bluish in color before heating, and once you have completed heating, it gets converted to yellow color or colorless liquid. Now we'll have a look at the method in detail. The clear solution is the whatever clear solution you have obtained after distillation or after decomposition is now distilled with sodium hydroxide, NaOH. Why sodium hydroxide? Is because NaOH, it forms the Na, it will form a bond with SO4 and it will free the ammonium group. That means sodium will form a bond with sulfate to form sodium sulfate, and it will release ammonia. The amount of ammonia present is directly proportional to the amount of ammonium sulfate present. The amount of ammonia present and thus the amount of nitrogen present in the sample is determined by back titration. We will be we will be discussing about these methods again in detail in the next slides. At the end of the condenser, you can see here the end of the condensers are dipped into a liquid. Now this liquid is a boric acid. Why? Because ammonia is volatile, and in a gaseous form it will immediately escape out of the apparatus. So the vapor tube is fitted with a condenser, and cool water is circulated through the condenser here. The condenser now converts the vapor ammonia to liquid ammonia. So the drops of ammonia will slowly trickle down and will form or will merge into the lower yellow color liquid present in the conical flask, which is boric acid. Ammonium drops reacts with boric acid to form sodium borate. Now, our job is to determine how much amount of sodium borates are formed. Initially, we will be adding a sufficient amount of boric acid. So, suppose 100 molecule of boric acid, just a hypothetical example. And if you have added initially 100 molecules of boric acid, and if 80 molecules or sorry, only 20 molecules of boric acid are remaining, that means 80 molecules have formed a bond with ammonia. So you can back titrate and see that 80 molecules are not present, boric acid are not present in an intact form. That means 80 have formed the bond with ammonia to form ammonium borate, and accordingly you can determine the nitrogen content. If this slide or if this explanations are confusing, the next slide will clear. Here we'll go again right from the beginning, step by step. The sample is taken and it is heated with sulfuric acid or treated with digested with sulfuric acid. Now suppose your sample is bluish in color, and if you have heated with sulfuric acid, it will convert to sodium sulfate, right? So ammonium sulfate and the other byproducts. Now our next job, now this formation of ammonium sulfate indicates blue colored sample has been converted to yellow one. Now next job is to liberate the ammonia. This can be done by treating or heating the ammonium sulfate with NaOH as it's shown in this diagram. The RBF is containing ammonium sulfate and here we are boiling it with NaOH. On heating with NaOH, as I have told you, sodium will form a bond with sulfate to form sodium sulfate and ammonia will be free. This free ammonia will travel from the neck of this RBF into this vapor tube. As it is going away from the RBF, this vapor tube is connected with a condenser. Cool water is circulated, so this ammonia which is in vapor form has now been converted to liquid. The liquid ammonium droplet, the end of the condenser are dipped into a solution. Now this yellow color solution here is of boric acid. In this boric acid, the droplets of ammonia are getting merged or getting mixed. See the next, capture of ammonia. We are here capturing the ammonia, released ammonia. Boric acid, which is having water in it, to this liquid ammonia enters through the end of the condenser and it forms ammonium borate. Now, initially we have added suppose 100 units of boric acid and at the after complete boiling or distillation with NaOH, if you find that only 20 boric acid molecules or 20 units of boric acid are remaining, that means we can say that 80 ammonia molecules have merged with 80 boric acid molecule and this can be done by back titration. See here, boric acid is back titrated with sodium carbonate. Now here we can come to know how much amount of intact boric acid or unreacted boric acid are present in the conical flask. Accordingly, we are back calculating it. I will again explain the same process. Suppose you have initially added, we will take another numbers or examples here. Suppose you have initially added 6060 boric acid molecules. Okay, hypothetical example. These boric as 60 boric acid molecules, if they react with 60 sodium carbonate, you will get 60 sodium bicarbonate molecule and sodium this borate and all. This indicates that initially whatever 60 you have added, you have got 60 sodium borates. That means there is no ammonia in your sample. Okay. Now take another example, 60 boric acid you have added, but during the back titration you found that only 2020 sodium borates have formed. 2020 have formed, that means where are the 40? 40 have formed a bond with ammonia to form ammonium borate. Okay, so if 40 boric acid molecule have formed bond with ammonia, a single bond will be there. That means there are 40 ammonia molecule. And from where this 4040 ammonia have came? It has been released from this ammonium sulfate. So if 4040 ammonia were released, there were 4040 ammonium sulfate molecule. And from where this 40 ammonium sulfate have formed? Here it is. 40 ammonium sulfate have been formed from the sample. So ammonium sulfate has 2 ammonia in it. Okay. So if you have 40 ammonium sulfate, that means 2 ammonia per ammonium sulfate. That means the sample has 8080 ammonia molecule because each sulfate has consumed 2 ammonia molecule. Likewise, you can back calculate the number of nitrogens. Usually, titanium dioxide is used as a catalyst because this method is lengthy and complicated. So, the rate of reaction can be increased by addition of titanium dioxide as per the official methods. Talking about the sensitivity of the Geldal method, the potential, if you are using potentiometric titration, less than zero point 0.1 milligram of nitrogen can be determined in your sample. If your sample has nitrogen more than, so suppose 0.1 milligram, then only you can go for potentiometric titration. In case of zone capillary electrophoresis, you can determine the nitrogen up to a level of 1.5 microgram per ml. Whereas in case of ion chromatography, the sensitivity is increased. If you are titrating it or if you are analyzing it with the ion chromatography, the sensitivity increases up to 0.5 microgram per ml. Of course, it has certain limitations like various compounds such as nitro compounds or azo compounds or even certain alkaloids wherein the nitrogen is present in the ring format like pyridine, quinoline or isoquinoline. Such kind of nitrogens cannot be converted to ammonium sulfate. Now, since these nitrogens are not converted to ammonium sulfate, this method fails to determine the nitrogen in those compounds. So this method is not applicable for such compounds which are wherein nitrogen is present in either nitro or azo or a heterocyclic ring. Like this, the nitro groups are after heating they get converted to this kind of compound instead of getting converted to ammonium sulfate. So there it is not possible. So this is all about the elemental composition determination by combustion analysis.